What if I told you that one man captured 132 enemy soldiers single-handedly in World War I? What if I told you he did it using turkey hunting skills from the Tennessee mountains? Today, we're telling the incredible story of Alvin York, the pacifist who became America's greatest war hero. Alvin York was born in 1887 in a remote valley in Tennessee. He was a simple mountain man who could shoot a turkey's head off at 100 yards. When America entered World War I, York initially refused to fight, claiming his religious beliefs prevented him from killing. But on October 8, 1918, in the Argonne Forest of France, this reluctant soldier would perform the most extraordinary feat in American military history. We'll explore how a Tennessee mountain man became a reluctant soldier, how his hunting skills translated to the battlefield, the incredible day when he captured 132 German soldiers, and how his actions changed the course of World War I. Stay until the end to learn how this humble hero used his fame to help his community. Alvin York was born on December 13, 1887, in a two-room log cabin in Pall Mall, Tennessee. The third of 11 children, York grew up in extreme poverty in the remote mountains of the Cumberland Plateau. His father died when Alvin was young, forcing him to become the family breadwinner at just 24 years old. York worked as a blacksmith and farmer, but his real skill was hunting. In the Tennessee mountains, hunting wasn't a sport, it was survival. The York family depended on Alvin's marksmanship to put meat on the table. York's shooting ability was legendary in the Tennessee mountains. He could shoot the head off a turkey at 100 yards with an old muzzle-loading rifle. Local shooting contests were no challenge. York won them all. His preferred technique was to shoot the back bird first in a line of turkeys, so the others wouldn't be spooked by seeing the front bird fall. But York wasn't just accurate. He was incredibly fast. He could reload and fire his single-shot rifle faster than most men could work a lever action. These skills, developed hunting for survival in the mountains, would prove crucial on the battlefields of France. York's weapon of choice was a .32-40 Winchester rifle, and he could make every shot count. In the mountains, ammunition was expensive, so missing wasn't an option. In his early 20s, York was known as much for drinking and fighting as for his shooting skills. He was the leader of a rough crowd in the mountains, settling disputes with fists and sometimes guns. But in 1914, York experienced a religious conversion that changed his life completely. He became a devout Christian and joined the Church of Christ in Christian Union, a pacifist denomination that opposed all forms of violence. York gave up drinking, fighting, and even refused to hunt, except when absolutely necessary for food. When America entered World War I in 1917, York faced a terrible dilemma. His country called him to fight, but his religion forbade killing. When he registered for the draft, York wrote, "Don't want to fight" across his registration card. His request for conscientious objector status was denied. Despite his religious objections, York was drafted into the U.S. Army on June 5, 1918. He reported to Camp Gordon in Georgia, where his shooting skills immediately caught attention. During rifle training, York consistently scored perfect marks, amazing his instructors and fellow soldiers. But York remained troubled by the conflict between his duty and his faith. He confided in his company commander, Captain Edward Danforth, about his religious beliefs against killing. Danforth, recognizing York's potential value as a soldier, spent hours discussing the moral complexities of war with him. Captain Danforth and Major George Buxton worked with York to reconcile his religious beliefs with military service. They pointed to biblical passages where violence was used to protect the innocent and defend freedom. They argued that fighting against German aggression was morally justified to save lives. York requested a 10-day leave to return home to Tennessee and pray about his decision. In the mountains where he grew up, York spent days in solitary prayer, wrestling with the greatest moral dilemma of his life. When he returned to camp, York had made his decision. He would serve his country, believing that God wanted him to help end the war and save lives. "I'm satisfied it's right," York told his commanders. This decision would lead to one of the most extraordinary single-handed military actions in history. Once York committed to military service, he threw himself into training with characteristic determination. His natural leadership abilities emerged, and he was promoted to corporal. Fellow soldiers respected both his shooting skills and his moral character. York's unit, the 328th Infantry Regiment of the 82nd Division, was shipped to France in May 1918. The regiment was nicknamed the All-American Division because it contained soldiers from every state. York's company was assigned to the Meuse-Argonne Offensive, the largest American military operation of World War I. The Meuse-Argonne Offensive began on September 26, 1918. American forces faced heavily fortified German positions in the dense Argonne Forest. The Germans had spent 4 years preparing these defenses, creating a maze of trenches, machine gun nests, and artillery positions. York's regiment faced some of the toughest fighting of the war. German machine gunners had clear fields of fire across the open areas between the trees. American casualties were mounting rapidly, and the offensive was in danger of stalling. On October 8, 1918, York's company was ordered to capture a German stronghold on Hill 223. The mission seemed nearly impossible. The Germans held the high ground and had superior firepower. But this mission would make Alvin York a legend. Early on the morning of October 8th, York's platoon of 17 men was ordered to circle behind the German machine gun positions on Hill 223. The plan was to attack the Germans from the rear while other American units assaulted from the front. Led by Sergeant Bernard Early, the small patrol moved through the dense forest before dawn. York, now an acting corporal, was second in command. The men carried rifles, pistols, and hand grenades, but they were vastly outnumbered by the German defenders. As the patrol moved through the forest, they stumbled upon a group of German soldiers eating breakfast in a clearing. The Americans surprised the Germans and captured about 20 prisoners. But this initial success would soon turn into a desperate fight for survival. The real battle was about to begin. As York's patrol was securing their German prisoners, machine gun fire suddenly erupted from the hillside above them. German gunners in concealed positions had spotted the Americans and opened fire with devastating effect. Within seconds, Sergeant Early and several other Americans were killed. The surviving soldiers dove for cover behind trees and rocks, but they were pinned down by intense machine gun fire. York found himself in command of the surviving men, facing an impossible situation. The German machine gunners had the Americans trapped in a natural amphitheater with no escape routes. Every time an American soldier tried to move, German bullets would force him back into cover. It seemed like only a matter of time before the entire patrol would be wiped out. Realizing that staying pinned down meant certain death, York made a decision that would change military history. He ordered his men to guard the German prisoners while he worked his way around to flank the machine gun positions. Using skills learned hunting in the Tennessee mountains, York moved through the forest like a ghost. He used every tree, rock, and depression for cover, just as he had stalked deer and turkey back home. The Germans couldn't see him moving through the underbrush. York positioned himself where he could see the German machine gun nests clearly. He was alone, armed only with his rifle and pistol, facing an estimated 35 German soldiers in heavily fortified positions. What happened next defied all military logic. York began picking off the German machine gunners one by one with his rifle. But he used a strategy learned from turkey hunting that proved devastatingly effective. When hunting turkeys, York had learned to shoot the back bird in a line first, so the others wouldn't see it fall and fly away. He applied this same principle to the German soldiers. York systematically shot the machine gunners from back to front in their positions. The Germans in front couldn't see their comrades falling behind them, so they didn't realize the extent of the threat. Each shot was precise and deadly. York's mountain marksmanship was serving him well. As York continued his deadly accurate shooting, a German officer led a charge of 6 soldiers straight at York's position with fixed bayonets. York quickly switched to his .45 caliber pistol and shot all 6 men before they could reach him. Again, using his hunting instincts, York shot the last man in the charge first, then worked his way forward. This prevented the men in front from seeing their comrades fall behind them. The surviving German commander, Major Paul Vollmer, realized that his position was hopeless. This lone American soldier had systematically destroyed his machine gun nests and killed his best men. Vollmer made the decision to surrender his entire unit. When the shooting stopped, York had killed 25 German soldiers and captured 132 prisoners, including 4 officers. He had silenced 35 machine guns that had been pinning down the entire American advance. All of this was accomplished by one man, using skills learned hunting in the Tennessee mountains. York marched his prisoners back to American lines, where his commanding officers could hardly believe what had happened. The German prisoners confirmed York's incredible feat, and the physical evidence on the battlefield supported their account. In a single morning, one American soldier had eliminated an entire German stronghold. News of York's extraordinary feat spread rapidly through the American Expeditionary Force. General John J. Pershing, commander of American forces, personally interviewed York about the action. French Marshal Ferdinand Foch called it the greatest individual achievement of the war. York was promoted to sergeant and awarded the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration. The French government awarded him the Croix de Guerre, and several other Allied nations honored him as well. But York remained humble about his actions, attributing his success to divine providence. When York returned to the United States in 1919, he was greeted as a national hero. Parades were held in his honor in major cities, and he was invited to meet President Woodrow Wilson. The press dubbed him the greatest civilian soldier of the war. But York was uncomfortable with the attention and publicity. He turned down numerous offers to capitalize on his fame, including lucrative movie deals and endorsement opportunities. Instead, he wanted to return to his simple life in the Tennessee mountains. York's humility and moral character made him even more admired by the American public. Here was a genuine hero who sought no personal gain from his extraordinary service to his country. Although York shunned personal profit from his fame, he did use his celebrity status to help his community. He was deeply troubled by the lack of educational opportunities in the remote Tennessee mountains where he grew up. York founded the Alvin York Institute, a school that provided education for mountain children who otherwise would have had no opportunities. He traveled throughout the country, raising funds for the school, using his war hero status to attract donors and supporters. The school became York's greatest pride, even more than his military achievements. He believed that education was the key to lifting his people out of poverty. Through his efforts, hundreds of mountain children received educations they never could have afforded. When World War II began, the aging York tried to enlist again, but was rejected due to his age and poor health. Instead, he worked to support the war effort at home, making appearances to boost morale and sell war bonds. York's health began to decline in the 1940s, partly due to injuries sustained during World War I. He suffered from various ailments that left him partially paralyzed and unable to work. Despite his status as a war hero, York faced financial difficulties in his later years. In 1941, Hollywood released Sergeant York, starring Gary Cooper as the Tennessee Mountain Man. York had initially resisted movie offers, but finally agreed when the producers promised that the film would be respectful and accurate. The movie was a huge success and won Gary Cooper the Academy Award for Best Actor. York used his share of the profits to pay off debts and support his school. The film introduced York's story to a new generation and cemented his place in American folklore. Alvin York's story teaches us several important lessons that remain relevant today. First, moral courage is just as important as physical courage. York's struggle with his religious beliefs and his ultimate decision to serve his country shows the complexity of moral decision-making in wartime. Second, extraordinary achievements often come from ordinary people with extraordinary character. York was a simple mountain man who became a hero through skill, courage, and moral conviction. York's emphasis on education and community service provides a model for modern heroes. He understood that true heroism extends beyond individual acts of courage to include service to others and society. His story also demonstrates how skills learned in civilian life can translate to military service. York's hunting abilities, developed for survival, became crucial military assets. This reminds us that every person has valuable skills that can serve their country when needed. Alvin York died on September 2, 1964, at the age of 76 in Nashville, Tennessee. He was buried in the Pall Mall Cemetery, not far from where he was born. His grave marker simply reads, Sergeant Alvin C. York, reflecting the humility that characterized his entire life. But his legacy lives on in the school he founded, the students he helped educate, and the example he set for future generations. Alvin York proved that one person, armed with skill, courage, and moral conviction, can change the course of history. His story reminds us that heroes come from all walks of life, and that true heroism lies not in seeking glory, but in serving others when duty calls. If you found this story inspiring, please like and subscribe for more incredible tales of American heroes. And remember, extraordinary courage often comes from ordinary people doing extraordinary things.